It's Vanessa, and welcome to a new conversation on energy. This one is going to be, we're just packing all the big concepts into one video, and I'm actually going to challenge myself and see if I can make a shorter video for you today. It's going to be about awakening, ascension, the eclipse, and your path. And so I'm going to touch a little bit on each of these points, as always, from an energy perspective. I'm no astrologer. I simply read the energy. I'm a seer. I'm an energy guide and an energy teacher. And so I always like to look at what's happening in the world and what's happening within our lives from that energy context perspective and filter. And so when I share these, insights or clarity out into the world, what that does is not only help you refine your point of view and see what resonates and what doesn't, but it also activates your ability to also read and navigate the world from an energy perspective. And that is a big part of my path and my calling and my vision and purpose and mission. And so I love bringing you these conversations. Now, before we get into the details, I, as always, love to welcome you here, whether you are new or returning. Thanks so much for tuning in to this conversation. And please do like, comment, subscribe, click to get notifications, share with your friends, all that good social media stuff so this gets out to more of my people. I really do appreciate that. So thank you. And let's just jump right into this big topic, many topics, actually. So we've got awakening, ascension, the eclipse, and your path. So it's one thing to dive into, these big topics that are very relevant for the collective and also very active in our own individual lives. And I find, as much as I love to learn about these and tune into what they mean to me, what I'm sensing and reading is going on, it isn't until I make meaning and application and integration into my own life that it all starts to make sense in a new and different kind of way. And that is very much what this time is about, this new paradigm experience that we're having and the shift that we're in is we are quite literally recalibrating to the way that we view, experience, and show up in reality in our day-to-day lives and in our understanding or understanding of everything that's going down. So I'm going to just define each of these concepts in my point of view, share with you. I would love to hear if you have a different or expanded perspective. Please do feel free to leave that in the comments. So let's start with awakening. Right now, currently, we as a collective, as a species, are in an awakening. What does that mean? I've often heard people, and even myself, talk about it like, oh, you're getting connected with the true you. Well, what does that mean? Who is the true you? And if you haven't been that, who have you been? What have you been doing? Who are you showing up as? And so awakening, the way that I frame it is really, it's really more about a remembering. It's really more about a tuning inward so you can then experience and expand your perspective on the external reality. Once you start to tune into what's going on with you and get actually more of a sense of who you really are, and we're going, there's kind of the bridge time, right? First, you're in this, I am human, and this is my experience, moving into I'm human and I'm starting to connect with spirituality, and spirituality is becoming more of a solid part of my life. Then you move into the state. I mean, right, there's like a sequence to these. And I do want to say something about the non-sequential aspect of this period as well. Then you move into the space of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually a soul, and being human is part of my soul's experience. And when you orient to life from that perspective, you then realize you have a lot more authority, agency, sovereignty, uh, power than you originally thought when you're in more of that human stage where you're like, WTF, what is going on? How do I work with this? What the heck is happening here? It's a completely different orientation, and way that you perceive yourself is quite literally an individuation process. So there is a sequentialness to it. And at the same time, because of how energy is shifting and moving, this kind of goes into the ascension topic a bit. The awakening and the remembering can be more immediate, like a peak enlightenment moment. It also can be more multidimensional in nature, so less linear, less sequence. So there's multiple ways that time is moving, and the way that you are experiencing reality is happening. It's all happening in various different ways, and that's why it can be, from a human perspective, feel like it's a little more challenging to track, right? Because we're like, what is going on? I had this wild experience. Where does this fit into my model of reality? How do I work with this? Who am I now that I've had this experience? And so again, this is part of the awakening. We're having an expansion of consciousness with how we perceive and experience reality. I'm going to stop there because even just one conversation on awakening could be a life's work, right? So let's move into ascension. Ascension, essentially, is, and if you want more details, I have an energy guide program. It starts relatively soon. If this is your jam and you're really coming to the space from feeling that sense of activation in your own intuition and your own sensing of energy, and you're really starting to get that there's a higher purpose for it all, please do go check that out. It's vasmith.com/energy-guide. And there is one of the 24 modules that we go over is on awakening and ascension and how that's showing up specifically in your life. It's not just the content, it's the experiential application and going through it together as a group to be talking about this more. But to move back to ascension, because it's interesting, it's not necessarily a topic that I've gone into too much depth on in this channel. Ascension is exactly like it sounds. It is an elevation, specifically in frequency or vibration. Everything that exists has a frequency and a vibration to it. And we're getting more in tune and attuned to what that frequency and vibration is within ourselves, within everything around us. And we are beginning to navigate our world from that energetic relationship perspective. And so ascension, what's happening is the frequency is rising, essentially, and it's rising within us. It's rising within the earth itself. It's rising from a collective perspective. It's also rising from a galactic and a cosmic perspective. So there's many different frequencies that are increasing right now. And what that translates to in our daily lives is we have more of a sense. Well, let's see. What that translates to is when the frequency rises, whether it's rising within, I mean, really simultaneously in multiple places, it's all rising. And so we're kind of in this incredible cosmic soup, so to speak, with like we're all interconnected here. And so we're feeling the rise of that frequency within ourselves and within our environment. But what that does is it quite literally pulls out lower frequencies. We're talking old versions of you, old limitation programs, old shadow aspects that you don't want to acknowledge exist within you. So, and when those densities or lower frequencies get pulled out of our system, it can be very uncomfortable. It can feel like we're moving a few steps back versus a few steps forward. It can it can have the effect on the physical body that you actually feel quite unwell. So you can have some of the common Ascension symptoms are tinnitus, like your ear ringing, headaches, overall fatigue, because your body, your dense physical lower frequency body, that's not bad, it's just a different frequency, is expanding. It is quite literally changing. The systems and structure of your body is shifting physically and energetically. Now, if you're looking at things purely from an energetic or purely from a physical perspective, we will say you might not notice too much change, because the physical reality is vibrating. Even though there's an increase in frequency, it takes a little longer to get on the scene. You know what I mean? Like, we came to the physical reality to experience the process, and the process is generally slowed down over time. So for those of you that are like me, that are here for building something, building a legacy, building a vision, building a project out in the world, sometimes it takes forever, right? Or we feel like it does. We're like, why is this taking so long? So there's a cultivation of patience that needs to happen when you know that you're part of the build. That being said, we may not notice necessarily any physical changes happening within our physical being, but we'll feel them. We will feel stretched. We will feel a symptom expression, like something isn't quite clicking into place. But like, we don't feel like we normally feel, more sludgy or just slowed down in some way. It's because these frequencies are moving out of our system. Our shape is changing energetically, and it will eventually adjust how we appear physically. Again, that's going to take a little bit longer, though some of you that are highly tuned in will notice the subtle changes. I know I do. Like, sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, I look different. Something is different. And so there's a lot more I can say about that. But again, I'm going to try and keep this like basic overview territory. So that is, in a nutshell, Ascension. Frequency rise, pulling out lower frequencies within your system, AKA older, denser versions of yourself, patterns, programs, behaviors, ways of thinking, ways of being. It's uncomfortable, feels like you're taking a step back, but you're not. You're literally ascending. And so it's important to have this context. Also important in the larger, I want to say more mainstream narrative, and also, well, both the allopathic and the holistic model of healing, right? Like, addresses the symptom rather than the root. And so whether you're going to get a prescription because you're like, what is going on? Why do I feel so, horrible physically? And it's not that you should ignore the symptoms. The symptoms give you information. And it's very important to know the larger context in which the symptoms are emerging, so you can get more clear on the root, so you can actually know how to work with what is happening for you right now. Can't recommend enough to start building your personal apothecary of energy medicines. I have loads more to say about that, and we'll continue to talk about that in the coming months and years, about your personal apothecary. Anyhow, there are some even more holistic models or approaches or healers where they are also addressing solely the symptom. That's an old paradigm model. So even if you're going to a naturopathic doctor and they're throwing like 20 supplements at you, not that supplements aren't helpful and needed in certain situations, you just might want to like seek out somebody that has an expanded awareness and consciousness and does a more integrative perspective, where they're looking at the root while also looking at how to work with the symptoms and how that gets expressed. But You always want to go root cause. Okay, so seed plant here. And also really start to develop your own discernment around what what I'm experiencing right now. Is there something truly out of balance with my physical body that needs to be addressed? Or is this just an ascension symptom and I need a nap and I need to set down my phone and stop scrolling and I need to just go merge with moss and hug a tree? And I say that in jest somewhat, but I'm actually not joking. If you go out, and I was thinking I want to start a group called Moss Meanderers or Merging with Moss or, Tree Touchers, something like that, because it is a complete reset for my system. And I know if it works for me, it's got to be working for other people too. And I want to hang out with those people because I really, really love to reset my natural rhythm by going to nature. Anyway, those are some thoughts on Ascension. Before I move into the eclipse and your path, I just want to say the point of creating this conversation, this video share, is we are existing within the intersection of all of these different energies that are happening simultaneously. And we're wondering, why do we feel off? What's going on? It's like, hold up. We as a whole, as a collective, are becoming more aware, curious, and sensitive to energy because our energy systems are shifting and changing. I've done a load of videos around this, so please do peruse this channel. If you happen to be listening to this on the Check the Energy podcast, go over to my YouTube channel, which is Vanessa Smith Energy Guidance. There's a load of videos about the energy system shift. If you want to learn more and learn how to apply it in your life, then go to vasmith.com/energy-guide. And perhaps we haven't started yet and you can join the next group. So there's all of these energies that are intersecting within our lives, and they are influencing us greatly, more than you realize. And so I wanted to kind of bring in the big players today in this conversation: the awakening, the ascension, and the eclipse and your path. So let's move on to the eclipse. So currently when I'm making this, it is a few days before April 8th, 2024. If you happen to find this video at any other time, it just means there's something relevant and resonant for you to be paying attention to. So keep tuning in. But if you are finding it at the time that it's coming out, then definitely keep tuning in, because the solar eclipse is happening on Monday. And so I want to talk a little bit around what that is, what that means. I will preface it by saying I am not an astrologer. I actually was prompted to create this conversation based on a very short clip of there's quite a number of astrologers I really admire. And whether you believe in astrology or not doesn't mean it's not affecting you. It's always affecting you, whether you think it's real or not. So I don't know. I would suggest learning a little bit more about it. I find for myself that because I'm so tuned into the energy in general, whenever I look at astrology, it tends to be very confirming and validating, and go, oh, that's why I was feeling the energy as I was feeling it. Makes sense. So from the eclipse perspective, it's a solar eclipse. It's a new moon eclipse. New moons tend to be about planting seeds of intention, though I've heard don't try and do much of anything around in the eclipse period because there's such big energy. Just kind of let it do its thing is the general advice, and to just take quite good care of yourself, right? Rest when you need to, etc. So the eclipse often brings out whatever's underneath the surface for you. Whatever position the eclipse is in, whenever it happens. So the eclipse is in Aries right now. Aries is all about, it's the first sign of the zodiac. It's all about me, and ego and, individuation, initiation, fiery war. Like there's just this, really claiming your identity in the world. Who are you? Who are you really? Who are you here to be? And so those themes might be amplified for you right now. If you find yourself acting in old ways or kind of evaluating like, oh, wow, it doesn't really feel aligned for me to show up in this way anymore. That is very classic Aries, to be reflecting on that and to like take charge, to really move forward and say, no, I'm carving a new path for myself. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting. Chiron, which is an asteroid, right? Yes. It's known as the wounded healer. And Chiron is in the exact same spot. I believe it says it's conjunct. Again, correct me if I'm not using the right astrological terms, but Chiron is in the exact same position as the solar eclipse. So again, solar eclipse is going to amplify whatever's underneath the surface. Because it's in Aries, it's going to be about our self-expression, individuality, who we are, who we're meant to be, how we're showing up in the world. So we're going to be thinking a lot about who we are and our role here and what do we want to initiate. That's going to be loud, except Chiron's showing up at the same time. Chiron is the wounded healer. The story of Chiron is essentially like it's the wound that never quite heals. It's the wound you can guide other people through, but you can't really change it so much for yourself. Like at least in terms of total full healing and release from that wound. So wherever you have Chiron in your chart, that's gonna like show up just as amplified. Easy way to find it. I will put a link below. I really like Chani Nicholas. I always mess up her last name. I'll link it in the below. You can get a free chart, and she breaks it down in not just astrological language, but also in like I want to say like regular human language, no, but just like in more beginners layman's terms. And so you can see if you scroll down to the bottom after you put your info in, it will show you where Chiron is, like if it's in Aries, if it's in Libra, wherever it is, and what house that it's in. And so that will give you, and then just take that information. So for example, for me, I have Chiron and Aries in the 12th house. So that's my wounded healer. And I'm actually going to make a separate conversation to go up about my eclipse story, because, well, for many reasons that I'll go into in that actual recording. So all you do, just look it up, where Chiron in whatever sign it is, in whatever house it is. Do a little Google search, and that will inform you on how to best work with the energies pre-eclipse, on eclipse, post-eclipse, right? It's going to be, and then the eclipse energies kind of play out over the next 6 months. And so this is, it's a real opportunity actually to very intentionally work with these energies in your life, to be the alchemist that you are, and to allow yourself to move into the higher frequency version of you that's emerging anyway, right? It's like we might as well support that process rather than fight with it or resist it or react to it, or be in the woundedness of it. So that's a bit about the eclipse. And now I want to talk about your path. So your path is really the expression of these different energies at play and how you choose to work with them. Your path, you have a uniquely designed path. I always give a nod to human design gene keys in astrology. No affiliation, just simply because they've been very, very helpful tools for me to learn. And I'm pretty tuned in. Like this is one of my gifts, one of my areas of like specialty, to be tuned into my own soul blueprint, to know myself very well. I'm sure it has to do with being a Scorpio and being psychic and like all of those pieces, right? And so but the way that those frameworks have been so illuminating for me in terms of my own design and why I'm here and what my purpose is about and how to live that in a more conscious and aligned way. And that is part of the collective call right now, is is intentionally setting up your path. And these energies that I just went over, they're at play. Whether you choose to play with them consciously or not, they're shaping your life. They're shaping your path. They're shaping your perspective and what you experience, the opportunities that you call in, and the connections that you cultivate, right? And so when we think about our path, we have so much more. And I think that this is also part of the awakening process and the ascension process and the eclipse process, is that we are becoming more aware and conscious of how much agency, power, and sovereignty we have around shaping our path, around who we are and how we show up in the world. And so instead of, going down this more inverted route of like, oh, if I just, buy this thing or travel to this place, like we always think that the solution is outside of ourselves. And it's not that we don't want to, travel or experience different aspects of the human plane, physical plane of reality, right? That's part of the experience. But to think that relocating or changing how you look externally or buying this thing is going to inform your path is misguided. It may give you information, certainly, you may have an experience around that. But right now, as a collective, we're searching for deeper meaning because the light in us is quite literally emerging and cracking through it's like, we cannot live a life that isn't aligned with our spiritual truth. And everything that you seek, that you think is going to be a solution, is really just you awakening to and aligning with your spiritual truth. That's what the path is about right now. That is the bridge time that we are in, to remember that, to embody that, to project that out into the world, to consciously create that path. What is your spiritual truth? Who are you really, and how are you showing up in the world? How are you creating your path? And all of these energies are going to be, they are influencing you. So connect with them. Instead of being in this old paradigm model of feeling like you're a victim to whatever is going on. And believe me, I know the energies can hit hard. I've had plenty of moments, crying in the corner or curled up on the floor going like, when is this going to pass? This is really intense. But then it passes. And the light, it rushes in. The light rushes in. I said this the other day in another video that I recorded. I saw this very poetic short clip on Instagram, and this guy was talking about, we don't need to heal anything. We just need to allow ourselves to relax enough and to trust enough that love just rushes in when we do. And so this is a bit of a similar concept that I want to express to you about your path, because if you are like me, have been a seeker, what is my purpose? What is my path? Please give me clarity. I know there's a bigger context we exist within that personally is connected for me with my Chiron, with my wounded healer, which is why I feel compelled to share my story, and also as an initiation and a statement of reverence and honor for and respect for the path that I've been walking. And I think storytelling is medicine when used in appropriate contexts. And so I'll be sharing that pretty soon. It'll likely come out on the eclipse day. But in the meantime, please do work with these energies. Please do see yourself in the context of awakening and ascension and the eclipse and Chiron, and your path will become more clear. Your confidence will increase. Your self-worth will become more rooted in, I want to say, divine love, for yourself and divine love of life rather than the ego push-pull of, how we regard ourselves. So that's part of the journey that I'm walking. It is likely yours as well. With that, I'm going to sign off and say thank you so much for tuning in. Please do like, comment, subscribe, click to get notifications, and share with your friends. I do appreciate that. And I will be back again soon with another conversation on energy. In the meantime, take care and work well with these energies.